Okay, I'm going to start by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. The way that we're going to start our course, this introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, is give you guys an opportunity to actually practice some of his teachings through meditation. So we're going to start with meditation. After the meditation, I'm going to go into a talk about what the teachings of the Buddha are, kind of from a high level so that you can understand what they are. I'm also going to teach you what they aren't as well. And then we're going to actually get into his very first teaching so that you guys can understand his very first teaching from the very beginning. So if you're just starting out on the path, this is an excellent course for you to learn in just a couple of hours some of the teachings of the Buddha and to be able to actually practice a bit with the meditation. So if you'd like to practice with the meditation, what I do is I start with chanting to ease us into the meditation. And I have these chants on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to see what those are. For those of you guys that are online, you can go to buddhadailywisdom.com and click on free books. And from there down towards the bottom, you'll see this chanting sheet where we're going to be chanting. It's important to understand that the chanting, there isn't any rite or ritual or ceremony or worship as part of the teachings of the Buddha. This isn't a prayer or anything like that. During his lifetime, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. That every 2 weeks, the students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. And this is how they committed them to memory because his teachings were all oral. They didn't write things down during his lifetime because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. We probably don't necessarily think about writing things down as technology, but 2,500 years ago, that was technology, right? And that just didn't exist in that region of the world. Just like technology rolls out slowly in this world, the same thing was happening in that world, that this technology existed in China, but it didn't exist where the Buddha was. So they just taught orally. So they would come together and recite his teachings every 2 weeks to commit them to memory. And if you look at these teachings, or if you look at these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't even think that the Buddha actually created these chants, because if he did, that would be arrogance and ego and pride and putting yourself above people. And a Buddha wouldn't do that. An enlightened being wouldn't do that. So his students most likely created these either during his life or after his death because they had a lot of respect and gratitude for him, sharing his teachings to be able to help them get to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to join along, you're welcome to join along in the chanting. Then afterwards, I'm going to guide you in the meditation where you're going to hear me giving you instruction, and we're actually going to be meditating at the same time. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start talking and helping you guys to understand the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, oftentimes people like to sit on the floor in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair. These are all options for you. You can sit however you're comfortable, but let me just give you a little bit of guidance on this. Just some suggestions for you. You can sit however you're comfortable, but these are some things you might consider. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will help to soften your seat a bit. And then you'd like to just lightly bring your legs together. This will help to ensure that the circulation can flow. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, which gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So that might be an option that you consider as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you'd like to use this, you could, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options for you here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing for anyone sitting in a chair or on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair. You can maybe consider putting your feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, and then you can put your hands and arms wherever you feel comfortable. It's helpful if the upper body is erect. This helps to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle so your mind can stay attentive and alert, and it also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivadeyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti pisu Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see you all here. Welcome to Wat Tung. As I mentioned, what I'm going to be doing over the next few hours is introducing you to the teachings of the Buddha. First, I'm going to explain to you guys what the teachings of the Buddha are and what they are not. Then I'm going to dive into the first teaching of the Buddha, where you're going to be able to understand the problem that he discovered in the mind, the cause of this problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to completely eliminate it. This is called the Four Noble Truths, where you can have a real breakthrough to finally understanding what's causing your mind to experience all these difficulties and struggles, and then you can actually focus on solving it. If you didn't understand what was causing the problem, you wouldn't be able to figure out how to solve it. So the Buddha teaches you in his very first teaching, what is the problem, the cause of that, the elimination of it, and the path forward, so that you can focus on the real problem and actually get real solutions. But as we get started here, I just would like to let you guys know that if you would like to ask questions as we go, you're more than welcome to ask questions. You can ask any and all questions that you like. You're going to see I'm going to pause at different times to open up to questions for you guys. Those of you guys here at the temple, if you guys could use the microphones and the white bowl there, that'll help the people online to be able to hear you, and we'll be able to hear you here as well. All you need to do is press the gray button on the microphone, the lights will come on, and then hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom. You can unmute your microphone and then ask any and all questions that you like. So to get us started in this introduction to understanding the teachings of the Buddha, let me first just explain to you what is an actual Buddha. This is going to be helpful for you to understand what is a Buddha before you even start to understand some of his teachings. What a Buddha is someone who has attained enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. This is the first criteria of what makes a Buddha, that they didn't learn from somebody else, they figured it out on their own. Then the second criteria of a actual Buddha is that once they've gotten to enlightenment, they're going to dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what make a Buddha, is that they get to enlightenment by themselves, they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those teachings, and then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people get to enlightenment after their death. Just for a moment, what enlightenment is it's where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's a mental state that you experience in this life, where you no longer experience any discontent feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And the Buddha figured out how to do this on his own. You'll notice that the mind is focused, concentrated, have clarity, and you'll have deep memory because your mind will be performing optimally by that point. Your personal and professional relationships will be really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience a bad mood because they've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing these things to occur, which you guys are going to get a glimpse at here in this particular course. So a Buddha has figured out how to do this by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. And then they've had such a profound change in their life that they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing that teachings that it took for them to get to enlightenment with other people. And because their mind is performing so well and their wisdom is so deep, they can help countless people get to enlightenment during their lifetime. Then they will preserve those teachings so that other people after they die can also get to that same enlightened mental state. There's other criteria too, and here's some of those here, that an individual who is an actual Buddha will have a profound memory. They will be able to recall countless details about their current life and their past lives too. This is what helps them to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. The way that I can explain this to you is that the average human being has like a certain capacity in their mind. It's like a hard drive. You have like 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte or whatever it is. And when you get to a certain capacity, you have to delete your old files in order to store new files. This is why when you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories because you've had to delete those files in order to store the new files. That the last 5 or 10 years, you can pretty much remember what you've been doing and what you've been involved in. But if you go back so far, you just have spotty memories because you've had to delete those files in order to store new files because your mind has a certain limited capacity. A person who's going to become a Buddha, they don't have this limitation. They have an unlimited capacity to remember things about their current life and their past life too. So they accumulate all this wisdom over the course of multiple lifetimes that it comes together and culminates in their last life to be able to be applied for them to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves because they've been accumulating this wisdom over multiple lifetimes. So this is one of the criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. They also can quickly determine the condition of someone's mind by spending time with that person. And as they observe the quality of that person's mind, they can actually offer them teachings that are going to help them to be able to improve. So this is one of the things that makes a Buddha so able to be so effective at helping other people to get to enlightenment is because they can observe the quality of people's minds and then be able to help them. But they don't do that in an unsolicited way. A Buddha's not just going to step into your life and be like, by the way, here's some things for you. No, it's for their students that are learning with them. They're going to be able to observe their mind. So a Buddha is not actually interested in other people knowing that they're a Buddha. The Buddha didn't go around and perform a bunch of miracles to try to convince people who he was, because it's actually good for people to not know who a Buddha is, because if there was some outward characteristic of knowing that a Buddha was a Buddha, like maybe their ears turned a certain way or they have a certain mole in a certain location and everybody knew that person was a Buddha, people would be on their best behavior around that person, right? Most likely. And now the Buddha wouldn't be able to observe the natural state of the people's minds to be able to offer them teachings to help them. So a Buddha will typically perform one miracle at the very beginning of their teaching career, but then after that, they don't perform any more miracles because their teachings are independently independently verifiable, and people can independently verify what it is that they're teaching. So they don't need other people to be convinced that they are a Buddha in order for them to be effective in the world. And it's actually more effective if people don't know that they're a Buddha, because now they can observe the quality of their students' mind and help them with teachings. Then this last one that you guys can't quite see because we've made a change to the projector. I'll have to adjust the screen a little bit. What this says down here is that a Buddha is a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they teach, they're also practicing that too. So that way their students can learn, because a Buddha is wise enough to understand that their students learn through their spoken words, but they learn just as much through observing their actions. So a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. If they're teaching people to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, for example, then that person is also going to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You're going to see that in the way that the person's practicing. So a student can learn just as much through their teacher's actions as they do through their spoken words. In fact, maybe even more through their actions. So a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. We refer to this person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because by the time they get to enlightenment, what they know about the path to enlightenment is the pure path to enlightenment. Essentially, what a Buddha does during their lifetime is they set down lights along the side of the path and kind of illuminate it and make it very clear for people how to get to enlightenment. Whereas if someone learns from a teacher, you might actually have gotten to enlightenment, but maybe 10%, 20% of what you're doing didn't lead to your enlightenment, but you're still doing those kinds of things anyway. But there's still kind of this extra baggage around, right? Where by the time someone's gotten to enlightenment by themselves, they don't have that extra baggage. So a Buddha would be trying a certain meditation, for example, and if it works to improve the condition of their mind, they know that that's part of the path to enlightenment. But if they try a certain meditation and it's not working to improve their mind, they will discard it. They will eliminate it out of their practice, so that what they know by the time they get to enlightenment is the pure path to enlightenment. They don't have any extra baggage around. Where sometimes a student learning from a teacher, they will just kind of continue to do a certain practice just out of respect for their teacher, rather than realizing that that's not actually truly working to get them to enlightenment. So we refer to a person who's a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because they don't have any extra baggage around that. What they know is exactly what the path to enlightenment is. So this is what a Buddha is. And this individual, having gotten to enlightenment by themselves, would have deep, profound wisdom to help other people get to enlightenment. The last Buddha that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. The person who we're talking about, the Buddha or Gotama Buddha, he was born in 563 BC, and then he died in 483 BC. So he died over 2,500 years ago. So this is a very rare, very unique type of individual. Sometimes you hear people tell you that everybody's a Buddha, but the Buddha didn't say that. That's what people are saying now because of their arrogance and their ego, thinking that they are an actual Buddha. But a Buddha is very rare in the world. And if you live during the lifetime of a Buddha, you'd probably be interested to study with that person, right? So a Buddha is going to have a very deep, very profound amount of wisdom. In terms of what the teachings of the Buddha are, is they are a path to attaining enlightenment in this life, where you're actually purifying the mind. The Buddha discovered certain pollutions in the mind, and then he gives you the tools and the techniques of how to purify the mind and get rid of them. And because these things worked for him, they will actually work for you too. In that purification, as you've done that through the mind and purifying the mind, you'll ultimately get to this mental state that you can attain during this life. You can also attain it at death too, but the ideal thing would be to attain it during life, because then you'll experience the rest of your life having that peace and joy, that calmness of the mind. You'll experience the contentedness. It's a permanent mental state where the mind always is experiencing these particular qualities. Where in the unenlightened state, your mind goes up and down, up and down. You'll be happy and excited for a period of time, but then you'll be frustrated and agitated and annoyed and grumpy and irritable. Your mind's kind of going up and down. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's just always peaceful and always joyful. You'll no longer experience any of these discontent feelings, like I was mentioning at the beginning of the class, or just a little bit ago when we were talking about what enlightenment is. All of these and others will be completely eliminated from the mind. That the causes and conditions that are producing these have been uprooted out of the mind. Right now, you might be believing that other people cause you to be frustrated or angry. But by the end of today's class, I'm going to show you in a way that you can independently verify how it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And because it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. Whereas if it was other people who were causing these feelings, you'd never be able to eliminate them because you can't change other people. So you need to be able to understand what's causing these feelings, which is the very first teaching of the Buddha. If it was other people causing these feelings, nobody would ever be able to get to enlightenment. So these can actually be eliminated when you eliminate the causes and conditions. So when you eliminate those pollutions of the mind, not only have you eliminated these conditioned feelings, you experience these qualities where there's a high degree of focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory because your mind's been refined. You've been disciplining your mind. You've been refining your mind to the point where it's functioning optimally. So you're going to notice these qualities as well. You'll notice that you can have deep wisdom where you understand things about the world that other people don't understand because you've cultivated this wisdom. You'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. Right now, you probably find that challenging. If there's certain situations that you're in, you might find that it's very challenging to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in every single situation, no matter what's going on in your day-to-day life. You'll notice that you're no longer experiencing any harm in the world, that you're not causing harm, and therefore harm isn't coming back to you, that you'll get to a point where you're not causing harm to other beings, so therefore harm isn't coming to you either. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships. When you're putting that stuff out, that stuff's going to come back to you. And because the mind, with its lack of wisdom, thinks that other people are causing you to be angry, you might feel justified in your bitterness and harshness and hostility towards others. But when you see that it's your own mind causing these feelings, then you'll come to understand that it's really unwise to be bitter and harsh and hostile to others, because whatever you put out is just going to come back to you. So you can get to a point where all your relationships are at ease and they're really blossoming. So more about what the teachings of the Buddha are is he's teaching you what's called the natural laws of existence, namely the natural law of karma. What the natural laws of existence are, these are certain natural laws that are affecting all of us, whether we're aware of it or not. When we were growing up, we experienced the natural law of gravity. It was affecting us, whether we were aware of it or not. And because of our lack of wisdom of this natural law, we made unwise decisions, and it produced unwholesome results for us. We fell down. We hit our head. We bumped our elbows. We broke our toys and things like this. Because we lacked wisdom of this natural law, we made unwise decisions without even realizing it. And this natural law was affecting us, whether we were aware of it or not. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity, and now we might say that we've fully awoke to the natural law of gravity, meaning we've cultivated wisdom about this natural law. And now we make wiser choices. And that's why we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all across the world, because we fully awoke to this natural law and we're making wiser decisions. We're tying our shoes tighter, we're looking at the surface of the sidewalk, we're not being so giddy and bouncing around like a little kid anymore. So because of our wise decision making, we're experiencing wholesome results or wholesome karma. So there's certain natural laws that are affecting us, whether you're aware of them or not. And now with the lack of wisdom of those natural laws, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions. And it's going to lead to unwholesome results in your day-to-day life or unwholesome karma. This word karma, it is from this, the more popular version of it is karma. You might have heard this. It's from the Sanskrit language. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so I use this word karma because that's the original word from the original source teachings of the Buddha. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. If it translated to just one English word, I would use that, but it doesn't. So I need all these different words to help you understand what it means. What it means is the results of your decisions. That when you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you're going to experience either wholesome results or wholesome karma, or unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. The natural law of karma isn't punishments and rewards. It's nothing mystical or magical. There's no being who's overseeing this. It's a result of our decisions. Like, for example, you guys are all sitting here politely and kindly and just kind of listening to somebody talk. And you're not causing any harm to others. So that's why no harm is coming to you, right? Whereas if you were poking the person in the eyes next to you, or spitting on them, or pulling their hair or something like this, there's going to be some harm that comes to you because of that. This is the results of your decisions, right? There's a cause and effect, or action and result. There's no being who's overseeing that. There's no one who's controlling it. It's just the results of your decisions. It's a natural law that's functioning all the time. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you're going to tend to go out into the world thinking you have all the best intentions in the world, but you're going to be making some unwise decisions. And now you're going to experience these unwholesome results. Part of those unwholesome results are the broken relationships that you experience, the difficulties and struggles with stress and frustration and anxiety and all these kinds of things. When you fully awake to this natural law, you're not going to have those difficulties and those struggles. You'll be able to see that your mind will be quite calm and quite peaceful. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle. You will have difficulties. That's what the natural law of karma is it's showing you as an unbiased teacher, like, hey, you're having difficulties here. Your mind's shaken up. You're having challenges. It's because of your lack of wisdom about these natural laws. And now you go out into the world and you have struggles and difficulties. But you can get to the point where you fully awake to these natural laws, where what it means is you have wisdom of these natural laws, and now you'll make wiser decisions, just like with the natural law of gravity. And not because someone told you to do it, not because it's a rule or a commandment, because that's not how the Buddha teaches, but just as a natural law, you'll make wise decisions. Like I like to point out, like this glass of water behind me, I always put it behind me, right? I don't put it out here in front of me. Not because somebody told me to do it that way, but just because of my wisdom of the natural law of gravity. I know if I put that water there, it's only a matter of time before it gets knocked over, right? But because I understand the natural law of gravity, I just naturally make wiser decisions and I put it behind me, right? So when you understand the natural law of existence, that the Buddha teaches you all these natural laws, and you do this in a way that you're learning his teachings, you're investigating them, and you're examining them. Then you reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice them. You'll get to the point where you have more and more wisdom about these natural laws, and you'll naturally make wiser and wiser decisions that is producing wholesome results or wholesome karma. But when you lack wisdom, you're going to inadvertently be making unwise decisions that is going to lead to unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So the Buddha didn't explain the way the world should be. Instead, he's explaining to you the way the world is. Right? He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, that if everybody does these things, then the world will become a better place. He didn't do that. He explained to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, now you won't struggle and have difficulties in this world anymore. Because when you walk out into the world and you don't understand the way the world is, now you will struggle because you're living in a world that you don't understand. But when you gain wisdom of these natural laws and you understand the world you live in, now you don't struggle and have difficulties any longer. So he didn't explain to you how the world should be. He didn't give you a bunch of rules and commandments to follow. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And you'll see that when I teach you his very first teaching. So training the mind to experience this complete peace and joy is to acquire wisdom of these natural laws. And as part of that, you're eliminating the pollution that's within your own mind. That's how you get to enlightenment, is by cultivating wisdom of these natural laws through learning, reflecting to independently verify, and then practice. The Buddha's teachings are timeless. He spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's saying or what he's teaching. They're very clear. They're very concise and very precise. His teachings are timeless. The reason why is because he's teaching about the natural laws. And the natural laws that existed 2,500 years ago are the same natural laws that exist today. So his teachings aren't like only applicable during his lifetime. They're actually applicable today too, because he's teaching about these natural laws, and these natural laws haven't changed from his lifetime. He does teach about the cycle of rebirth, And he teaches about these 5 realms of hell, animal, afflicted spirits, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. These are all things that you can independently verify. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but on your journey to enlightenment, you can learn this. I actually have it in volume 11, chapter 105. I teach you how to independently verify this, but it's in volume 11, chapter 105 of the book series for a reason, because usually you're not looking at these kinds of things when you first get started, right? Whatever's happened in the past in terms of your rebirth, it's in the past. No need to focus and dwell on that right now. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. You don't have to focus on it right now. Right now, you're in this human state. It's the very best state to be in, the very best existence, because you're able to actually train your mind and get to enlightenment. So focus on that. So you focus on the core central teachings, and then a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years from now, when you're ready to approach the cycle of rebirth, that's a better time to approach it. But he did teach these for a reason, and I'll explain to you the reasons why he taught this. Because as you're training your mind to get rid of the pollution out of your mind, there's the potential that you will see your past lives. You might observe your past lives. If you didn't know about the cycle of rebirth and you started having vivid memories of being murdered, for example, this could really shake you up, because you know it wasn't in this life that you were murdered, but you could have very vivid memories of this, or maybe some other traumatic event. And if you didn't realize this was in the past, it could really shake you up. So as you're getting rid of the pollution out of your mind, you can start potentially observing your past lives, and now you'll understand what that is, and you know you're not going crazy. Or you might actually start having communication with these beings in these other realms, the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the heavenly realm. These are formless realms where they don't have physical form, but these beings are all here in the same time and space as us. It's not like they're in some distant world somewhere. Even though we call them realms, it's not like they're in the core of the earth or way up in the sky. They're actually right here in the same time and space as us. Just like there's human beings here now, there could be animals that come here, right? If we open the door, there could be some dogs that come in here and sit in this chair, right? We're all in the same time and space, just like hell beings, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings. So there's the potential that these beings can communicate with you. You can actually hear them speaking. And if you were having that experience, you might think you're going crazy. In fact, then people might call you schizophrenic or something like that. But if you understand these teachings, that this is quite normal, and just like when you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, a human being is talking kind of loud, and you can ignore that and just focus on your conversation, you can do the same thing when these other beings are kind of trying to communicate with you. You can actually just ignore it potentially, if that's what you would like to do. And then some people actually see these beings. They can actually see them physically, that they're formless beings, but you can actually sometimes see them, whether they're hell beings, afflicted spirits, which we might call ghosts, or a heavenly being. You can actually see them with your own eyes. And if you saw them and you didn't understand that this is true reality, this is the way the world is, you could think you're crazy and you'd be all shaken up. So the Buddha taught these things for a reason, but you don't have to run out and go learn them right now. But just understand that that is part of his teachings. He also did teach about God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha, you'll hear people say that the Buddha rejected God, or he denied the existence of God. This isn't actually true. If you study his original teachings, you will see that he talks about God, but he doesn't put God as a central role in his teachings, because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you that determines that. It's your decisions. So he puts you at the center of his teachings. He doesn't put God at the center of his teachings, but he does teach about this being, because this being is in existence, but he doesn't teach you to, fear this being, or that you should be worried about this being, or that you should praise this being, or anything like that. Instead, he just explains to you what this being is and essentially what this being is doing. But it comes back to you in learning and growing and developing on the path. So you will see by the time you study the teachings of the Buddha thoroughly that he does teach about this being, but he doesn't put this being at the center of his teachings, because this being doesn't decide whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that decide that. Then in terms of more about what the teachings of the Buddha are, is the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha is referred to as the Pali Canon. It's referred to that way because it's in the Pali language. This used to be a language in the past, but no longer is it a language that exists in the world. It's no longer a spoken language. There's nobody who speaks Pali on a day-to-day basis. But they call it the Pali Canon because it's 45 volumes of books that are about this thick that are in the Pali language, and that's his original teachings from during his lifetime that they were documented. So these 45 volumes of books, they were actually documented after his death because there were countless people that got to enlightenment. And by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is performing optimally. You'll have a deep and profound memory. And the technology to write things down had made its way to that region of the world. So they started documenting his teachings after his death. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you will know the teachings that it takes to get to enlightenment very clearly. There won't be any mistakes about it because you'll actually be practicing them regularly. So what he taught was documented after his death, and we refer to this as the Pali Canon, and it's in 45 volumes of books. This book series that I share of 13 books, what we've done is consolidated it down into 13 books, because one of the things that you're going to see in the original teachings is there's a lot of repetition. Because when you're in an oral tradition, there's essentially 3 ways to get people to remember your teachings. The first thing is you tell stories, because people like stories and they'll remember stories, right? So you can tell a story and it's going to get to some point and then people remember the moral of the story. The other way is you give lists. This is why you see the Buddha has the 5 precepts, the Eightfold Path, the 4 Noble Truths, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the 10 fetters. Because if you give people lists and they remember like 9 out of the 10, they're like, we know there's another one because it's called the 10 fetters. What's the other one? What's the other one? Oh, conceit. That's what we forgot. Conceit, right? So you give people lists and they'll remember your teachings. And then the third way is you have repetition, that you repeat yourself over and over and over again. And this will help people remember your teachings. So when you look at those 45 volumes of books, like maybe this thick, right? Maybe like 2,000 pages per book, there might be like 100 pages of that is actually the real teachings, that everything else is just repetitive over and over and over and over again. So we can consolidate it nowadays to make it manageable for you to actually digest. So that's what this book series does. So then lastly, about what the teachings of the Buddha are, is the way that I think about them is they are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, right? They are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what hurts you is inside your own mind. What people perceive that is hurting them is something external, right? If you have a certain difficulty or struggle in the world, what the mind will tend to do is blame other people. That's what the mind's really good at. It will blame other people for what you're experiencing. But as long as you're blaming other people, you're not focusing on the real problem. So therefore, you're not going to get to a real solution. So the Buddha's teachings are here to heal you from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to be able to understand what is hurting you is inside your own mind. Okay, so this is what the teachings of the Buddha are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. Right? Because this is one of the ways to help you understand what something is to teach you what something is not. Okay? So what the teachings of the Buddha are not is they are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a certain pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you do not believe in them. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha aren't even based in belief. There is no belief in his teachings whatsoever. You're never interested in believing his teachings because belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because someone convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. What you're looking to do is get to wisdom, right? And you can't get to that through belief. And the Buddha's teachings aren't about some pleasant afterlife. That's not what he's teaching you. He's teaching you how to get to a wonderful life now, right now in this life, so you can experience the joy and the peacefulness in this life, right? So it's not about these doctrine or views or opinions or concepts. He's explaining these natural laws that will guide you to a better and better life in this life. He discovered this better way of life. In my opinion, the teachings of the Buddha are not a religion. Even though people think of them that way, people sometimes consider it that way. It really depends on how you think about a religion. If you think about a religion as an organization with one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. Or if you think about religion as rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, or if you think about religion as rules and commandments that everyone must follow in order to create a peaceful world, the teachings of the Buddha are not any of those things. There isn't one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. There are no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you've been in temples and you've seen people that are looking like a Buddhist monk doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. Those are misunderstandings that people have today. But if you go back to his original teachings, there are no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship as part of his teachings. And if you're used to rules and commandments, the Buddha doesn't have any rules. He doesn't have any commandments. He's helping you to cultivate wisdom. He's not using guilt, shame, and fear in order to convince you to eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. In fact, he's not even trying to convince you of anything, right? Because remember, his mind's already peaceful. It's already joyful. And if you would like to experience that mental state, he'll show you how to do it. He is teaching you how to do it. But it's up to you to decide whether or not you would like to do it or not, right? So he's not even trying to convince you of anything at all. So if this is the way you think about religion, the teachings of the Buddha are not that. It's not a religion. He didn't get to enlightenment and say, hey, I discovered a new religion, right? He got to enlightenment. He said, I've discovered a better way of life. And here's that better way of life. And then he shared it with people. If you think about things like punishments and rewards, right? Sometimes we're taught that way, depending on how you grew up. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. He's not teaching you punishments and rewards. If you think about mystical and magical things or superstition and auspicious things, that's not what the teachings of the Buddha are either. They're not those kinds of things. If you think about things like, maybe sometimes people think that when you learn something like this, you need to go out into the world and convince other people to do these things. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. It's about you doing work. It's not about going out and convincing other people to do anything at all. In fact, this is your journey to enlightenment. You're not a devotee. You're not a follower. You don't have to go out and convince other people to believe in certain things. This is a path of inner growth, inner development. It's kind of like a self-help program, right? It's like the most well-vetted self-help program you've ever seen because it's been around for 2,500 years for a reason, because it actually works, right? So you don't have to go out into the world and convince other people to do these things. This is for you to decide whether you would like to get to this peace and joy. And then you focus inwardly in doing this work. Sometimes if you get on social media, you're going to see these short, catchy phrases that people will put like in a little meme or something like that. And then they'll slap at the end, it'll say the Buddha, as if the Buddha has actually said this particular thing. That's not the words of the Buddha, right? If you investigate those things, 99.9% of the time, you'll find out that it's not the teachings of the Buddha. So when you're looking at social media and you see little catchy phrases with the Buddha slapped on the end, you can be assured that it's most likely not the words of the Buddha. So you won't find these little short, catchy phrases. And then also, the teachings of the Buddha aren't something that's stuck in a cultural past that degrades other people and is judgmental of other people. Sometimes when we think about something from 2,500 years ago, we might think that, surely the Buddha denigrated women, right? Like he probably looked down on women. No, he didn't. If you actually study his teachings, you will never see that he talks in a negative way about anyone. He doesn't talk in degrading and diminishing ways about women or about minorities or anything like that. So if you ever see anybody attributing those kinds of things to the Buddha, you can be assured that the Buddha didn't teach that way. So his teachings aren't stuck in this cultural past that denigrates or degrades certain types of people. Instead, his teachings are these timeless teachings that are clear and concise, and he's always teaching how to be polite and kind and friendly and respectful to everyone and treating everyone equally. So this is what the teachings of the Buddha are not. They're not teachings stuck in a cultural past that degrades or judges other people. Do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are or what they are not? You can use the mics here if you'd like, or if you're online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like you have a question. Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
If the Buddha didn't have any prejudice or anything against women, why is it that there's a few temples in town where they're restricted to men only?
Because those people don't understand the teachings of the Buddha. We have these 45 volumes of books that are the Pali Canon, and for a long time, people weren't actually studying with the original teachings of the Buddha. Because if you come from like a Christian background, we would think like everybody must be studying the original teachings of the Buddha, because the Bible is like everywhere. Like even in hotel rooms where I come from, you can find a Bible usually in a hotel room. So everybody has a Bible. But think about it, 45 volumes of books that are this thick. It takes the average Thai person about 3 months of their salary to be able to print that out and have access to it. And most people don't have a book collection valued at 3 months of their salary, whatever your salary is, right? You probably don't have a book collection that's that expensive, right? So the average person, even the average temple, doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. That's why this book series, I title it, it's called The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings have been inadvertently hidden for many, many years because they're so expensive to print out. So what we've got is over 2,500 years, this oral tradition of people passing down teachings from person to person to person. So they either have been inadvertently changed and modified in some cases, or they've been overtly changed and modified. And now people are practicing these misunderstandings about the teachings of the Buddha. So each one of these temples are operated independently, and whoever is leading that particular temple, then those people are going to be understanding whatever that person is teaching. And just like other things, people will use the teachings of the Buddha, or at least they'll try to say that, oh, the Buddha didn't like these people or didn't like these people. That's what's going on in their mind. They might have hatred towards those people. So they're trying to say the Buddha thought that way too. But if you study his original words, you'll know that the Buddha never taught those kinds of things. So he didn't teach that women should not come to temples, and only men can come to the temples and things like this. So when you see those kinds of things, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. And you'll find that even here in Thailand, you'll find people that are doing things that aren't the original teachings. But you'll also find pockets of people who are studying the original words of the Buddha, and they understand his original teachings. And you'll see that they'll be more cheerful, they'll be more polite, more friendly, all inclusive, inviting people in and things like this, because they understand the original teachings. But when you see stuff like that, you can know that they aren't the teachings of the Buddha. And the Buddha knew this was going to happen. So in his teachings, he says that if you ever see anybody teaching something that is opposite of what he taught, you can just tell yourself that this person has misunderstood the teachings, and then you can ignore that teaching. So when you see people teaching things that are opposite than his original words, you can just consider that they've misunderstood and ignore that. Even a monk, because ordained practitioners, they're not always studying the original words of the Buddha either, even though they're ordained. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So I don't see any other questions. Oh, Adrian has a question.
Yeah, so because it's all up to our own perception and individual interpretation of the words of somebody, because the Pali Canon was all written by his students who had attained enlightenment, how do we know that those are the original words?
Okay.
Like, because it's all like interpretation, perception. Yeah.
You're never interpreting the teachings of the Buddha. You'll never hear me talk about interpretation of his teachings. You're learning his teachings, examining them and investigating them. You're reflecting on them to independently verify, and then you're practicing to be able to see the truth for yourself. So what we're talking about here so far is we're talking about impermanence, how the teachings of the Buddha have changed over time. The same things have happened with Christianity and Muslim teachings and all these others. When people think like the Bible is like super pure and it's like the word of God, this isn't true, because you can't have a document that was created 2,000 years ago be exactly the same 2,000 years later because of impermanence. So the same thing with the original words of the Buddha, that while we have the Pali Canon, and this is the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha, there are certain things in there that aren't the teachings of the Buddha in terms of, we're missing certain things that he originally taught. So the way that you cut through this impermanence to be able to see the truth for yourself is you never believe any of the teachings, that you learn, examine, and investigate them. You reflect on them to independently verify, and then you practice. And as you're practicing his teachings, training your mind and uprooting these pollutions, you'll see the condition of your mind gradually improving, where it's becoming more and more peaceful, more and more joyful, more calm, more serene. You'll see your relationships gradually improving. You'll see the condition of your mind gradually improving. So that's how you'll know what you're studying is the truth, because you've examined it yourself, learning it, not believing it, but you've examined it and investigated it. You then reflected on it through your own direct experience, through your own life. You can see, because he's describing for you what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life. And then you practice the tools and techniques. And as you're uprooting those pollutions out of your mind, that's where you see the mind start performing more optimally. And you'll know that you're experiencing the true teachings of the Buddha, because you're seeing improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. And that's how you'll know it's the true teachings. And that's why I have full confidence of this particular set of teachings that I'm sharing with you, because I know what the condition of my mind was like before, and I know what it is now. And I can share with you that these teachings lead exactly where he said they do. They lead to this enlightened mental state, but you need to be able to see that for yourself. So that's why you don't even believe me, right? Don't believe the books, don't believe me, don't believe any of this stuff, but learn it, examine, investigate, reflect to verify, and then practice to see the truth. And you're going to see that when I teach the Four Noble Truths, or you have seen that when I've taught in the classes that you've taken, where you see how I walk you through in a way that you can verify it. And that's what you would like to do. And I'm going to do that here with you guys, that I'm going to help you to understand the three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths in a way that you can independently verify. And then you'll know that these are the original teachings, because through your own direct experience, you can see that I'm describing for you the natural laws that you experience on a day-to-day basis. And I'm explaining to you what your mind is experiencing. And then I'm giving you the solutions of how to fix it. And then when you implement those, you're going to see that it works. You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. All right. So I don't see any other questions unless Marcel's going for a mic. Nope, he's going to the bathroom. All right. All right. I don't see any more questions. So oftentimes what I do is I take a little break right here to give you guys a chance to have a little rest. But we've only been talking for like an hour and 15 minutes. We could take a break here, or I basically have another 45 minutes to teach you guys, and then it's actually done. So would you guys like to take a break here? Like, take a break? Okay, why don't we take a break so you guys can get a chance to talk with each other? So it's 15 minutes after 2. Why don't we take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at 2:30, and then I'll pick it up from there. Okay, so thank you guys for your questions, and then we'll pick it up at 2:30. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Perhaps you guys had a nice little break and spending time to get to know each other. We're going to continue to dive into these teachings. And now that I've kind of given you guys a little bit of an introduction of what the teachings are and what they are not, and I've also taught you what a Buddha is, now we're going to dive into his very first teaching, because this is where the rubber really hits the road. This is where you really start being able to understand what it is that he taught. You're going to be able to have a breakthrough here, where if you haven't understood why you get angry and frustrated, if right now you think it's other people, you're going to be able to learn something here that you can independently verify to see that it's not other people causing you to be angry or frustrated. And the Buddha calls this a breakthrough. And I agree, it's a real breakthrough, because when you walk around constantly thinking that other people are causing you to feel a certain way, then you can't ever solve this, because you keep blaming other people. And this isn't the actual real problem or the cause of the problem. But as long as you keep believing that, you'll never be able to fix it. So I'm going to dive in and teach you in a way that you can independently verify what's causing your mind to be discontent. I'm going to teach you the problem in your mind, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And then as we go, I'm going to stop a couple times for you guys to ask questions. So in order to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, which is the real beginning of the path to enlightenment, I need to first help you to understand that it's part of this Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is what you're learning when you're first getting started on the path to enlightenment, but it starts with something called right view. This is what I'm going to teach you right now, is this very first step. And then if you'd like to learn all the others, I have various courses and retreats and things like this where you can learn the entire path. In fact, Monday, I'm going to be starting an entire course, which is a 5-day course. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment, where 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to walk students through over the course of 5 days to understand the original teachings of the Buddha and all the foundational teachings. So you guys can come here and learn this if you'd like. I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path on Tuesday morning. I'll be teaching this entire path. But the entire course is designed to give you all the foundational teachings that you need to make your way to enlightenment. But today, with the amount of time that we have, I'm just going to teach you right view so you understand this. Okay? So to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the three universal truths. Okay? The three universal truths are going to be building blocks that are going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. If we just jumped into the Four Noble Truths, you're not going to understand them 100%. So I'm going to teach these to you first. But remember, you're not believing what I say. Don't believe anything that I say. Don't believe anything I write in books or anything else. Don't believe anything anyone else says either. You would like to be able to see the truth for yourself. So I'm going to walk you through in a way that you can learn, you can reflect, independently verify, and you can practice. Here's what I mean by that. This first one, the universal truth of impermanence. This is helping you to understand that things are constantly changing in the world, that there isn't this fixed state, that there's something called conditioned objects. A conditioned object arises, it changes, and it fades away. Okay, this is part of the Buddha explaining to you the way the world is. The way the world is that things are impermanent. They arise, they change, and they fade away. Okay, these are impermanent things. These are called conditioned objects. Anything that you see, hear, smell, any taste, anything that comes in touch with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all impermanent. They arise, they change, and they fade away. These are called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects, they do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. So the natural laws that the Buddha taught, these are unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Enlightenment itself, by the time you get to enlightenment, it is a permanent mental state. It doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away because it's unconditioned. A conditioned object arises, changes, and fades away. Right? So here, this is just a little bit on the universal truth of impermanence, that everything in the world around you, all the material objects that you see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body or thoughts that go through the mind, these are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. But then there's these unconditioned objects that do not change. And the only two that I've ever found is the natural laws of existence and enlightenment itself. These two things are permanent. Okay? But now you don't believe this. right? You need to be able to see through your own direct experience whether this is true or false. So you start looking around the world around you to try to determine if you can find something that you can either see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or thoughts that go through your mind that is permanent. Because if you can find something that's permanent, then you've disproven this, and it's not actually a universal truth. So what I suggest you do is you start reflecting on this based on things that you're very familiar with. You're familiar with this human body. Ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If the body's permanent, that means it's always been the same. It's never changed your entire life. If the body is impermanent, then that means it's been constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since conception, when the egg and sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get a little bit fatter or a lot bit fatter. We lose our hair grows, our hair changes colors, our skin complexion changes, we get wrinkles, pimples, moles, we get all these different things. This is the body constantly changing, okay? What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, you have all the same people in your life throughout your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you have people coming and going in and out of your life. So are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Very impermanent, right? So bank account goes up and down and up and down. Sometimes they go up, 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 up. Sometimes they go down, 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 right? This is all impermanence, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, constantly changing. So we could just go on and on and on. And if this is what you need to do, do this, because you're going to need to be able to see the truth for yourself and get to wisdom. Because I'm teaching you wisdom about the world, that the world is impermanent. And now you need to be able to look around the world to see that for yourself. So when you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. Right? Here in Thailand, some of the sidewalks go up and back down and up and back down. That's impermanence. That's change. You can look around the planks of the wood in the temple. You can see some are different lengths, different color, different textures. This is all impermanence, right? We started out with a certain number of people in the class. Now we've got a different number of people in the class. This is change. This is impermanence. That's all it is, right? So this is a building block that you're going to understand why I'm teaching you this when we get to the Four Noble Truths. Right now, just understand it and now independently verify it for yourself so you can get to the wisdom. That's why we call these the three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths, because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But you need to know that they're true by seeing the truth for yourself. And you need to get to the point where you have confirmed that, yes, this world is impermanent. This is a building block that's going to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then we've got the second universal truth, the universal truth of discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard them refer to it in this way. But I'm going to teach you guys what the Buddha taught here, and then I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. So here in the original teachings of the Buddha refers to this as dukkha. That's the Pali word. The word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because when the Buddha is describing what dukkha is, he's describing what the unenlightened mind experiences, which is conditioned feelings. That the unenlightened mind experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, based on some condition. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put here boredom and loneliness, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. Or say something like shyness. This is a good example. Shyness, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you're sitting on public transportation and somebody comes and sits really close to you and your body is touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. That's what this is, kind of dissatisfied or uncomfortable. That's what that third one is. Okay, so what the Buddha is doing here is he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. These are conditioned feelings. For example, an unenlightened being will wake up in the morning, they will see it's sunny outside, and they will say, oh, it's sunny outside. I want to go hiking. I've been wanting to go on this hiking trail for many weeks now, and it's finally sunny outside. I'm going to call my friends and let them know so we can all go on this hiking trail and experience this hiking. And now they go take a shower and they come out 30 minutes later and it's pouring down raining. And now they're frustrated. They're agitated. They were happy based on the condition of the sun, but the sun wasn't permanent. So that means their happiness was not permanent. So now when they saw it's raining, they became angry or sad or frustrated or irritated, right? An enlightened being, they will wake up in the morning and they will already be happy before they ever saw it was sunny outside. It's like, sweet, it's sunny outside. I'm going to go hiking. I've been interested in going on this trail for a long time. Let me call up my friends and maybe they'll actually be interested to go. And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And it's like, it's raining. So I guess I'm not going to go hiking. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall, watch a movie. Maybe I'll invite my friends over and we can cook some food and have some food, right? Because I didn't base the feelings of that happiness and joy on the sun, that means when the sun is gone, that the mind can maintain its joy. But if you base your feelings on something, that means that thing is impermanent, so your mind's not going to experience that feeling permanently. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because your mind is having conditioned feelings. You're basing your happiness on your bank account, for example. If your bank account's here, you're happy, and when it goes here, you're sad, right? If the weather is this, I'll be happy, but if the weather is this, I'm going to be sad or frustrated. If my mom and dad do this, I'll be happy, but if they do that, I'm going to be angry and frustrated. If my boss does this, I'm going to be happy, but if they do that, I'm going to be angry and frustrated. This is the problem. You're going to see this in the Four Noble Truths. The discontentedness, the conditioned feelings, this is the problem, that the mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down throughout your life. And of course, you have different periods of time where you're peaceful and you're calm, but it's only a matter of time before you become frustrated or agitated about something. It's only a matter of time, right? And you're going to see the reason why this is occurring when we get to the Four Noble Truths. But here, what the Buddha is doing is he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences as a universal truth. And this is where you don't believe it, right? You know that your mind is unenlightened. Look at the feelings that you've had throughout your life and ask yourself, does this explain it? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant? I've just described it to you, what an unenlightened being experiences. And you can ask yourself, is that what you experience? And you can confirm that for your own direct experience. So now that you're understanding what discontent, discontented, or discontentedness is, where the mind is happy and excited, it's shaken up, it's unsteady, it's unstable, then there's painful feelings and neither painful nor pleasant. I'll explain to you why I don't use the word suffering, because some people use that here. The word suffering, in my opinion, describes the painful feelings really well. Like when you're angry or sad or frustrated, feeling guilty or shameful or fearful, stress or anxiety, you'd probably say that's pretty painful for you. But when you're happy or excited, would you say that you're suffering, right? Like if your boss called you up and said, hey, I'm going to give you a raise. I'm going to increase your salary by 30,000 US dollars. You're now making 150,000 US dollars. Are you going to be suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or say that person you don't know comes and sits next to you on the bus and your body's touching their body. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. You're discontent, right? And same thing when your boss calls you and you're so excited and you're ready to jump off the building. You're so excited, your mind's shaken up, right? Your mind is unsteady, it's uncalm, it's discontent. If you've ever been so excited that you tripped and fell and hurt yourself or broke something, you'll know what I'm talking about, that the mind is shaken up. It's discontent, discontented or experiencing discontentedness. So if we use this word suffering, we're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught here. That means we're missing 66% of his teachings. So how could we ever get to the ultimate goal if we're missing 66% of what he taught? So in order for you to come to the full understanding of the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences, I suggest you use this word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because that's going to bring your mind to fully understand what he's talking about here as a universal truth, that the unenlightened mind is going to experience these conditioned feelings. Now, by the time you get to enlightenment, you're going to be beyond these feelings. Your mind is going to be experiencing the peace and the joy. It's going to be unconditioned happiness, where in the unenlightened state, you can only experience conditional happiness. If essentially the mind's getting what it wants, you will be happy. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where your mind is just always happy as an unconditioned mental quality, not as a feeling. Because a feeling arises, it changes, and it fades away. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing the permanent mental quality of peace and joy and happiness. The mind is uplifted, it's bright, it's radiant. Okay, so this is the second universal truth. And this is going to come into play when I teach you the Four Noble Truths. I apologize that down here, you guys can't see this. We just recently made a change to our whole equipment here, so I haven't really adjusted it yet to the point where you guys can see this. This is actually the first class that I've used these slides for since we've made our changes here, so I need to make some adjustments, but I'll explain to you guys what this is down here. This is the third noble truth, or the third universal truth. The third universal truth is called the universal truth of non-self. Okay? What the universal truth of non-self is this is a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered. There's 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. We refer to them as a fetter because during ancient times, if you were a prisoner, they would attach a fetter to your ankle, which was a shackle, a chain, and a ball that would keep you trapped in a certain area. This is how they keep prisoners confined, just like in an open field, where today we put prisoners in jail cells, right? So when the Buddha discovered these pollutions in the mind, he referred to them as a fetter because they're keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state where it keeps experiencing this anger and frustration and all these other discontent feelings over and over and over again. So the very first fetter is called personal existence view. I'll explain to you guys what that is. This universal truth of non-self is the solution to this. What that very first fetter is, the personal existence view, is where the mind has confusion. It has misunderstanding, where it thinks that this body is you, or it thinks that this mind is you. The mind is going to cling to a certain self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Or you cling to a certain self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilled like chocolate ice cream or spaghetti sauce on your clothing and you got embarrassed, this was because of personal existence view. The mind was clinging to this self-image, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived, you'll be happy, you'll be excited. But then when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, you'll be frustrated or annoyed or embarrassed or some other feeling like this. If you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple and you were shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, and now you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're not being perceived that way, your mind will be shaken up by that. Or if you were like me when I was a teenager, in front of the mirror, working out my hair, I had the gel and the mousse and all this kind of stuff, and every little hair had to be in exactly the right spot before I went outside. And sometimes I even missed the bus. I was doing this for so long, right? So if you were ever doing that, that's your personal existence view. If you've ever put on clothes, you looked in the mirror and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look today. And then you changed over to some other clothes and you're like, that's the way I want to look. This is your personal existence view. The mind is clinging to this physical body, to this self-image, wanting others to perceive it a certain way. And now if you're being perceived the way you want, you'll be happy. But if you're not being perceived the way you want, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or embarrassed or some other discontent feeling. Then there's a certain self-identity that your mind can be holding on to. Your identity is around things like your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, your nationality, things like this. You might be clinging to this, like I am German, or I am Canadian, or I am American, or I am an Aussie, or I am Chinese, or any of this I am. It can be about your ethnicity, your culture. It can be about anything and everything. The mind can cling to it and think that this is who you are. Maybe I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when you're together in a relationship, you feel good, you feel whole, like I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, right? But now when you guys break up, you don't feel comfortable with that I am single, because your mind is identifying with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. And now you might have wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, because the mind wasn't comfortable with this I am single, because it identifies as I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. And the mind's lack of wisdom is confusion. It thinks the way to solve this is to hurry up and get back into another relationship so I can reassume that identity of I am a boyfriend or I'm a girlfriend or I'm a husband or I'm a wife. Or maybe you had a certain job or occupation, like maybe like as a police officer. Say I was a police officer. My mind identifies with I am a police officer. But now 10 years into the job, maybe I get injured, maybe I get fired, or maybe I retire. And now I'm at home, or I'm maybe a taxi driver, and I feel frustrated and I feel angry because I don't identify with I am a taxi driver. I identify with I am a police officer. And now you really struggle during this period of time. So you can have any number of things that the mind is clinging to as this is who you are. I had a student one time contact me because I offer students personal guidance, and he said, I'm having all this trouble since COVID. I was like, what's going on? He said, every store I go into, they have this cashless payment, and they switch around this little computer screen, and they ask me for a tip. He's like, all I did was ordered a coffee. It was like 30 seconds, but they want me to tip like 20%, 25%, 28%. He's like, I am a good tipper, and I have such a hard time going into these stores, and I'm not tipping, and I feel frustrated, and I feel so annoyed. I feel like less of a person. He's like, I am a good tipper. I was like, that's your personal existence view. I am a good tipper. And now when you're tipping, you feel good. And when you're not tipping, you feel bad. You feel like less of a person. So if your mind clings to any kind of identity, even I am a good tipper, you'll be conflicted when you're not doing that. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, where you realize that this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are. But the problem is that with personal existence view, the mind's confused, and it thinks that this body is you, and it thinks that this mind is you. So it clings to it, and it's craving for it to be permanent. So it's craving to be perceived by others in a certain way. Okay? So some people have personal existence view so bad that they'll get to a point where they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I've lost who I am. I need to go find my true self. I don't even know who I am. I need to go to Thailand and find myself and discover my true self, right? Well, they're not going to find their self here in Thailand because it doesn't exist. They might have a great time while they're here. They might find new hobbies, new activities, new friends, a new job, or what have you, but none of that stuff is you. But as soon as your mind grabs onto it and says, this is who I am, then when it all starts changing, you'll be lost and confused. So someone might go home after a couple of months or a couple of years and say, I found myself. I know who I am. Well, then as soon as all that stuff changes, you're right back into the same problem. You don't know who you are anymore because all that stuff has changed. So what the Buddha teaches you as part of the universal truth of non-self is that none of this stuff is you. It doesn't determine who you are as a person. So your past decisions, your past things that you've decided, that doesn't determine who you are. So if I chose to use drugs and alcohol in the past, And now today, I think I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. Well, I made choices in the past to use those substances, but that doesn't define who I am today as a person. But if my mind adopts that as my identity, I can really struggle during this period of time. So we need to be able to understand, like, hey, I made certain choices and decisions, but that doesn't define who I am today as a person. So this is what the Buddha is helping you to be able to get to, where you don't cling to any of these things as being who you are as a person. So you can independently verify this, just like all the rest of them, right? The way you can independently verify the universal truth of non-self is ask yourself these questions. These are 3 things that I usually help people to understand the universal truth of non-self. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, when you were in early adulthood, and then now. How did you view yourself? Did you view yourself in exactly the same way through all of those phases of your life? Or has your thoughts and ideas about who you are as a person been constantly changing? What would you say? Has it been the same or has it been constantly changing? Constantly changing, right? Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? Shaking your head, no. You're not less of a person, right? You have less use of a hand and arm, right? This is where you can see how the mind is confused. Because in this situation where we're talking about it intellectually, you can say, no, I'm not less of a person because I only have one hand and one arm. But if somebody says something degrading and disparaging about this body, you're going to get frustrated or irritated or annoyed because the mind's confused. Intellectually, you can understand this body's not me. But then in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something, you can get angry or frustrated. Because if this body was you, then you would have answered that question very differently. You would have said, yes, I have less body, so therefore I am less of a person. But when you answer, say, no, I'm not less of a person, you can see that intellectually you understand this body isn't you, because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. Here's another way you can independently verify it. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Maybe all you guys realize non-self already. So oftentimes what people do is they point here. They'll say, I am here, or they'll point here. Right? This is very common, right? So if somebody was pointing here and say, I am here, you got to look at what you're actually pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. So you ask yourself, is that who you are? That shirt you're wearing, is that you? Like if we took off that shirt and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that me? That shirt, this shirt, is this who I am? Is that who you are? You're shaking your head, no. Is that you? Your shirt? No, that's not you. Is that you? Your shirt? No, that's not you? Okay, so let's get rid of the shirt. We'll throw the shirt away. Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, what are we pointing to? We're pointing to skin, right? Is that who you are? That skin that you've got there? If we took off the skin and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that who you are? That skin? That's not you either, right? Okay, so let's toss away the skin. Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, what do we have? We have bones, we have muscle tissue, we have organs, we have fluid. None of that stuff is you. They're just bits and pieces and parts. But the mind's confusion, its lack of wisdom, its misunderstanding, it thinks that this is you. So it's clinging to it and thinking that this is you. So if none of these bits and pieces and parts are you individually, then collectively they can't be you either. Right? So the mind has to get to a point where it realizes that this body nor this mind is you. And sometimes people understand what I'm teaching here at this point. Sometimes people don't understand it. And that's okay, right? Because this is a teaching that people need to kind of learn a little bit more. You need to think about it a little bit more because you've spent so much time accumulating this personal existence view. From our birth, we were given a name. We were given a label. My label was David. And then we start putting all this character and personality behind it. Even the countries that we come from, We have national anthems, we have flags, we have sports teams that we cheer on, right? We've been adopting this personal existence view all throughout our life. So to sit here in like a 5-minute conversation and instantly be able to see what I'm talking about, sometimes people don't see it. But if you can understand about this embarrassment, like if you've ever spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, you can see that that was your mind clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived a certain way. So there's more to learn about personal existence view. In fact, in about a week from now on Sunday, I'm going to be going into it in a lot of detail and teaching it to people. So these are the 3 universal truths. And this is the Buddha explaining to you the way the world is. And now it's up to you to be able to learn it, reflect on it, to verify it, and practice it. Do you guys have any questions on any of these 3 universal truths? Anything you would like to ask?
What is the right answer to I'm not my shirt, I'm not my skin, I'm not the envelope? What should have been the proper answer? Who are you?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that so the people online can hear. So the gentleman just asked if we're not this body and we're not this mind, then what are we? That's what you're asking, right? So this is the mind still grasping. It still wants to grab onto something and find something to call me, right? So the Buddha's not saying that there's no being in existence, because there is a being in existence. When I'm looking here, I see a human being sitting in front of me. But what he's saying is don't allow your mind to cling to this, wanting it to be permanent, and identify as who you are as a person through this physical body or through this identity. So the Buddha isn't saying there isn't a being in existence. He's just explaining to you that it would be unwise to cling to any of this, thinking that this is who you are, because as soon as it changes, you're going to be shaken up. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to teach you one more thing as a building block, and then I'm going to teach you the 4 Noble Truths. Oh, Adrian, you have a question? Yeah, what's your question?
Well, like, I just want to clarify an understanding, I guess. So everyone's just like experiencing impermanence, right? So then, like the universal truth of non-self, right? We're all clinging to this desire or craving, attachment that, yeah, this is us, this is who we are. And because of that, we're experiencing conditions, feelings of discontentedness. So it all seems so rational, learning about it. So why are we trapped in this like state of confusion?
Because of the mind's lack of wisdom. The Buddha refers to it. We tend to translate it as ignorance, but I don't usually use that because it's kind of like a derogatory term. But a better way to think about it is the unknowing of true reality. Because the mind lacks wisdom of true reality, it's adopted these misperceptions. It's adopted these misunderstandings. And that's what we call unawake. The mind is unawakened. To awaken is to cultivate wisdom about true reality and be able to see the truth that, hold on a second, this body isn't me. This body is constantly changing, and I don't need to cling to it as who I am. Wait a second, all those things in my mind, yeah, I don't need to cling to that as my identity. So for example, I can understand that this body was born on a land that we refer to as the USA or America. But my mind doesn't have to adopt that identity of who I am as a person. So it's a matter of understanding something has occurred, but not clinging to it as who you are. So I can understand that right now I'm in a relationship with my wife, and someone might say he is a husband, but I understand that I'm not going to always be a husband, that my wife's going to die and I'm going to be single essentially. Right? But I don't have to adopt that as my identity of who I am, so that then when I'm no longer a husband, I can be completely peaceful and joyful because I don't adopt that as who I am. Or say, like, if I adopt this identity of I am a Buddhist teacher. So now when somebody says, all Buddhist teachers are lovely and kind and generous, and they share their time to help people. Wow, you get so pleasant feelings. But now when people say something negative and degrading and disparaging about Buddhist teachers, you'd be frustrated and agitated. So it's a matter of, I can train my mind through wisdom to understand that I'm performing the role of a Buddhist teacher. And people might even refer to me as a Buddhist teacher. But my mind doesn't have to adopt that identity of who I am as a person. Because even if I do this to the end of my life, at some point this being's going to die and I'm not a Buddhist teacher anymore. Whereas if you're holding on to it, you won't be willing to let it go, and that's what's going to cause these feelings. So it's the lack of wisdom, the misperceptions, the false views of reality, the beliefs, the misunderstanding. That's what's leading to all of this. And that's why your ultimate goal in the path is to cultivate wisdom. Because when you see the truth, that's what will help you break through all of this and get to enlightenment and liberation, where the mind can be free.
Okay. And as far as the feelings, in the enlightened state, we're still experiencing feelings, but they're not conditioned. That's my understanding.
All feelings are conditioned. Experiencing in the enlightened mental state is unconditioned mental qualities, where your mind is just always joyful. It's always happy. You're always enjoying every single aspect of life. Even we were talking about like sitting in traffic. He came and talked to me at lunch or at break, and he was talking about traffic. Would someone sitting who's enlightened, how would they experience traffic? They would just be enjoying themselves. They're not enjoying themselves because of the traffic, because that would be conditional, right? They're enjoying themselves despite the traffic. Despite that they're in traffic, they can still enjoy themselves because they understand the situation is impermanent and they're not going to be here permanently. Where when you're in traffic and you're like, oh, gosh, I'm stuck in traffic, the mind just thinks it's going to go on and on and on forever. It doesn't understand, because of its lack of wisdom, that no, this traffic is impermanent, right? So when you understand the universal truth of impermanence and you've trained your mind, you won't feel like you're stuck in traffic. You'll just know that this is an impermanent situation and it's going to be over at some point. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go on to one more building block, and then I'll explain to you guys the Four Noble Truths. This is a way to understand a very important thing as part of the teachings of the Buddha, which is craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, grasping, holding, clinging. What this is this is a mental longing for something with a strong eagerness. The mind pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind just chases and chases and chases and chases. It thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. And you might have experienced this at some point where your mind was at the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes, or a brand new phone, or a brand new computer, or a brand new video game, or brand new set of jewelry or something. And you're like, oh, I just gotta have that. The mind's just longing, yearning, and trying to get satisfaction with something external. The mind's like, oh, I know what I need to be happy. A new job. That's what's going to fix everything. Let me chase after that for a while. Oh, I know what I need. I need a boyfriend or girlfriend. Let me chase after that for a while. Oh, I know what I need. A bigger house. That's what's going to fix everything. Let me just get a bigger house. And now you chase after that. Or, oh, I know what I need. A bigger car. That's going to fix everything. Let me get a nicer car. Let me chase that. So the mind just thinks that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it chases and it chases and it chases. It's pulling towards this thing. It's like an unquenchable thirst. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You know, right? You've experienced this. Okay. So this is what is happening in the unenlightened mind. It's called craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, wants, and expectations. So now I'm going to put all of this together for you in the Four Noble Truths, so you can have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing your mind, the feelings that you experience. The first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The second one is explaining the cause of that problem. The third one is explaining the solution in terms of how to eliminate it. And then the fourth Noble Truth is explaining the complete solution, the complete plan of how to fix this. So in 4 simple statements, the Buddha is going to help you to have this breakthrough. Okay? So the first one is explaining the problem. The problem is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings. The mind's happy, excited, elated, pleasant feelings. Oh, now it's sad and frustrated and angry and irritated. Oh, now I'm experiencing boredom and loneliness and shyness and all these other feelings. The mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down. This is the problem, right? This is the problem that every unenlightened being is experiencing. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. Discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to say that a couple of times, and I'm going to give you some examples so you can see this. So those discontent feelings, the conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, they're being caused by this craving, this desire, this longing, this yearning, this chasing after the objects of its affection. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy or excited or elated. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets those painful feelings, the anger, the sadness, the frustration. Because the mind's craving permanence. It wants things to be permanently agreeable. Okay, so here are some examples for you. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had when you guys first got together. Oh, it was so wonderful, right? So many pleasant feelings. They were calling you up, checking in on you, sending you text messages. You're going out to the movies, going to dinner, going to the park, taking walks together, having conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact with each other, right? So much pleasantness. And then at some point over time, your expectations grew, their expectations grew. You couldn't meet their expectations all the time. And they couldn't meet your expectations of what you wanted, what you craved for them. And then you guys got so angry and irritated with each other, you broke up and you left. And now you might have felt sad. You might have felt angry. You might have been frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored. You might have been missing this person. Well, it wasn't your love that was causing that. What was causing it was the craving, the desire, the wanting this person to be permanent in your life. The mind was holding on and wanting this person to be permanent, right? And now, when you weren't getting what you wanted, the mind experienced these painful feelings. This also occurs like grandma, grandpa, mom or dad, brothers and sisters. If they've died and you grieve during that period of time, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting grandma, grandpa to be alive permanently. As long as they're alive, you're happy. But then when they die, you're confronted with this impermanence that the mind does not like. So one of the ways of saying that the mind craves permanence is to say that the mind does not like impermanence, does not like change. Think about the times in your life where things are changing, even if they were choices you were making, like you're changing jobs or you're changing locations where you live or things like this. These are the times that you struggled the most because of this change. The mind doesn't like change because it craves permanence. In the unenlightened state, it doesn't understand. It has that lack of wisdom of the universal truth of impermanence. It has this unknowing of true reality. So because it craves permanence, it doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. So when grandma and grandpa die, the mind's angry or sad or frustrated or sorrowful or grieving. Or say you go to a wedding. If you've ever been to a wedding and you've cried or people around you were crying, this is like brothers going off with another partner or sisters going off with a partner, and it's like, that's my sister. How dare they, right? It's like, how dare they go away? Like they're going away into life with somebody else other than you. And this is impermanence for you. Your mind is craving permanence. Or if you can think back to when you got dropped off at university, or maybe all the way back to like when you got dropped off at primary school or grade school, you might have cried, you might have been upset because you thought mom and dad were permanent. And here you go out into the world as a 3-year-old child or a 6-year-old child, like out in the world without mom and dad. The mind's holding on, and now you grieve and you're sad and you're frustrated, right? This is the mind craving permanence. Let me give you another example that doesn't involve relationships. Maybe you can see it even better. Think about if you got a brand new car and you saved up a lot of money for this car, right? And now you drive off the parking lot of the dealership and you're so proud. And everybody's looking at you like, wow, look at him, look at her. They're so successful. And you're so proud driving your car, right? Maybe it's a convertible or something like this. And you stop at a store, you park it, you go inside, and you come out. And there's a scratch on your car. You're probably going to get frustrated. You're probably going to get angry. But it's not the person who scratched your car that's causing that. And it's not the scratch itself. What's causing this anger and frustration is the craving for permanence. Wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched our car. Because when we walk through parking lots, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that we live in an impermanent world. It's only a matter of time before this car gets scratches, right? There's going to be somebody pushing a cart. They're not going to be paying attention, or the wind blows or whatever, and it's going to scratch the car, right? So when you get angry or frustrated in that situation, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind's craving permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. When in reality, this car is going to change because of impermanence. The paint's going to fade, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn, the tires are going to need to be changed. But as long as your mind's craving permanence, when you're confronted with that impermanence, your mind's not going to like it and it's going to be frustrated. Okay, so these are just a few examples. But now, to independently verify it, take a recent situation where you've been angry, you've been sad or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, something that's happened in your life. It might have been this morning. It might have been yesterday. It might have been last week. Think about that situation with these fresh eyes, because at that time you might have been trying to blame somebody else. That's what the mind usually does. It looks for someone else to blame. Okay? Look at that situation. What was it that your mind wanted? There was something you wanted. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get it, you got angry or frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. Do you see it? You can independently verify it, right? It's your own mind that's causing this. That's what I'm explaining to you here. And the Buddha is explaining to you in the second noble truth is it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. But the thing is that we will perceive these feelings as coming from something external. That's what we firmly believe. But it's a belief. Right? In the unenlightened state, we believe that other people are causing this because of our lack of wisdom. So that's why when somebody is experiencing anger or frustration, you will perceive it as the problem is external, and you might have tried to push people away out of your life. You might have noticed this. You push family members or you push friends out of your life. This is called aversion. The mind thinks that these painful feelings are coming from something external, so you'll push people away. Or you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards them with your intentions, your speech, and your actions. This is the unskillfulness in the mind. This is like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear this person into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people. You can try to control them. Maybe people are doing that with you, where they're trying to control you to do things their way. Because their mind thinks if I can just get things done my way, everything will be perfect. But the problem is there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. So as long as your mind doesn't understand the second noble truth, then you'll think the problem is external. And you'll keep pushing people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile. You'll put your expectations on people, and you can't live harmoniously with all people. People will choose to leave out of your life because of this, right? If you don't push them away, they will choose to leave because of the anger and the bitterness and hostility, or the expectations. They'll feel pressured in a relationship with you, and they'll choose to leave out of your life. Right? But when you come to understand the second noble truth, and you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then if your mind is the one that's causing it, that means you can eliminate it. Because if it's everyone else that's causing it, you can't fix it, right? Because you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. You could try, but that's going to be a massive training program, right? You're going to have centers all over the world. You're going to have to get people to agree that your way is the right way and that they're going to do it your way. There's new beings being reborn all the time. So you're going to have training programs everywhere throughout the world for everybody to do things your way. Or you could just train one mind. You know whose mind you need to train? Your own, right? It's that simple, right? You just need to train your own mind. So if it's everyone else that's causing these feelings, you can never fix it. But when you start looking inward and you see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you can actually fix this. You just need the wisdom of how to do it. And this is where the third noble truth is coming in, that the Buddha is saying that the elimination of this discontentedness is possible by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment. Because up here, if the cause of these feelings is craving, desire, attachment, all you need to do is eliminate the cause. If you eliminate the cause, you eliminate the effect, right? So if you eliminate the longing, the yearning, the chasing things, forming your inner feelings on that, then you can eliminate the discontentedness. But what the mind's going to tend to do is it's going to tend to swing over here to the other side, where you're dull and lethargic and complacent. Is like, well, if I'm not going to chase things and get my pleasant feelings, then why do anything at all? Why not just come over here and be lazy and dull and lethargic? But you're not going to be peaceful there either, because your mind's not in the middle. So your mind needs to be able to come to the middle. So eliminating your cravings, desires, attachment means that you can pursue things as a goal, as an objective, as an interest, but you need to learn how to do that without forming your inner feelings on it, of whether you get it or not. Right now, if you accomplish your goal, then you get happy. But if you don't, you'll get frustrated or irritated. But that's not actually a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. Your mind's longing, yearning, and wanting this thing. And if you get it, you'll feel happy. And if you don't get it, you'll feel sad or frustrated. But if you have a true goal, you can gradually work towards something as a goal, objective, or interest, and just not form your feelings on whether you get it or not. So you can eliminate these discontent feelings by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Then the fourth noble truth is explaining the path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to help you and guide you to eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments. And it starts with right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. If you continue to have wrong view, that means you would go around the world and you would blame other people for what it is that you're experiencing. But if you have right view, you can accept responsibility for what you're experiencing within your own mind, and now you can actually solve it. But if you had wrong view, you're going to keep blaming everyone else, and you're not going to be able to experience improvement to the condition of your mind because you're looking in the wrong place. But when you understand right view, and you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you start implementing the tools and the techniques that the Buddha shares in order to help you to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment, you'll actually experience real progress and real growth, because you'll see the condition of your mind is improving. Because in situations where you used to be angry and frustrated and irritated, you'll have those same exact situations and you won't be experiencing that anymore. And that's how you'll know it's these teachings that are leading to that improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. So there's 8 individual factors here, and it all starts with right view. It's the foundation of this is understanding that the problem is within your own mind. Because if the problem was something else other than that, why would you ever improve anything? Why would you do the meditation? It would be everyone else that needs to be here to learn. You're perfect already, right? It's everyone else that needs to be here to learn. But if you understand right view, then you understand, I've got some work to do here. I've got some real inner work. There's some real improvement that I need to create. So the Buddha gives you these 8 individual factors that you can learn using his original words to be able to then understand how to implement these into your day-to-day life. The way you might think about these is like if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality quality sound out of your speaker system, you would have these 8 dials that you're tweaking these dials to get a better and better sound out of the speakers. So your mind is the same way, that if you dial this into your life closer and closer and closer, you'll get a better and better performing mind. So it's not like you're mastering one before you move on to the other. You're actually tweaking all of these simultaneously and bringing them into your life. And this is what I'm going to teach on Tuesday, like I mentioned, as part of the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course. I'm going to walk you through this using the words of the Buddha so that you can understand every single facet of this. And it's separated into 3 sections: the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. Whenever you see the Buddha teaching moral conduct, this is helping you understand the natural laws, because there are certain things that you're doing in your moral conduct that are unwise. For example, if you're harsh and bitter in the way that you speak with people, that harshness and bitterness is going to come back to you. So he's not teaching you a rule or commandment. He's showing you the cause and effect relationship, that as long as you're being harsh and bitter with others, people are going to be that way with you. So if you're looking for real change in your life, you need to change the way you relate in the world. So as long as you're functioning through the lack of wisdom of the natural laws, you're going to be doing things, say, through your speech or your actions that are unwise. And now when you're putting out that harm through your speech or your actions, for example, that's going to come back to you. So the moral conduct, it's not rules or commandments, like I mentioned. It's to help you understand this cause and effect, or this natural law of Gotama, that whatever you put out is going to come back to you. So he's going to teach you this wise moral conduct of how to interact in the world wisely, so that now you can experience nothing but wholesome results coming back to you in the way that people interact with you, because you're interacting in wise ways. So you would need to learn this entire path in order to make your way to enlightenment. And this is the real work. This is the path to enlightenment. It's a complete, perfect plan that lays out exactly for you how to train your mind and get to enlightenment. So this is what I would teach on Tuesday. So let me see if you guys have questions, because this is everything that I have to share with you guys on this first teaching, because it's an introduction class. So I think you have a question, or did it pass? You got it answered? Oh, you got lost your thoughts? Okay.
Well, part of the right view is eliminating, or if you go back to the previous slides,
Sure.
the previous slide, where the third truth is the elimination of discontentness.
Mm-hmm.
What if what is causing you grief is a brother or sister, and by their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
you're not pleased, you don't like?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's your mind that doesn't like, and that's not their problem, it's my problem.
Yeah.
But if I just choose to eliminate the cause and I turn my back on that person,
Yeah.
how can that put me on the right path if I just ignore the situation or their behavior? So, well, they won't get on my nerves anymore, I'll just go the other way and won't talk to them anymore, or won't see them, or...
So the Buddha's not teaching you to walk away from people necessarily, right? In some cases, you might need to do that in certain relationships, but that's not what's going to lead to your elimination of craving, desire, attachment necessarily. What he's teaching you is not to have an expectation that this person is going to function in a certain way. Because in your mind, in each individual unenlightened mind, there's a certain perception of how everybody should function. That mind's craving permanence. Everyone should do it this way and this way and this way and this way. And when people do it that way, you're happy. But when they don't do it your way, that's where the mind gets angry or frustrated. But you need to understand impermanence, that not everybody's going to do it the same way. Not everybody's going to say thank you when they walk through the door and you're standing there holding the door. Not everyone's going to say thank you because of impermanence. Maybe when you walk through the door, you would say thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you holding that door for me. That's what you would do. But not everybody does that. But if you're standing there holding the door, expecting, wanting, longing, yearning, now when someone walks through and doesn't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. But that person isn't what's causing it. It's your expectation for the permanence, right? So if you have a brother or sister who's functioning a certain way, they could be doing something unwise, potentially, but that's not what's causing your mind to be frustrated. What's causing your mind to be frustrated is you want them to do it this way, and they're doing it this way over here. And there's always tons of different ways to do things in the world because of impermanence. But the way that the mind will perceive it because of its ego is there's only one way to do things, and it's my way. And my way is the right way.
Okay.
And if people do it any other way, it's wrong. And now I'm going to get angry and frustrated.
Okay. I do understand what you're saying, but how can I use the elimination or that third truth to help me accept, or, well, it's not even I have to accept the behavior. It's
not that you're accepting the behavior, it's that you're understanding that this person isn't going to do things the same way as you. Right? And it's slowly that you're going to need to train your mind, because there's this mental discipline section, which that breathing mindfulness meditation that we've been doing, that's training your mind to let go. Right? Because your mind's holding on, and I want it this way. And when they do it this way, I'm going to be happy. But when they do it this way over here, because of impermanence, you're not happy. So it's not that you're accepting it or that you're ignoring it. You see that that person is maybe lying, right? But if you have an expectation for them to tell the truth, now your expectation is going to cause your mind to be frustrated. Where maybe you know that it's unwise to lie and you choose to tell the truth. But when someone else lies, this is them making an unwise decision. But you don't have to get angry or frustrated about it just because they're choosing unwisely to lie, for example. You have to be able to look at this and see what the mind's doing is craving for everyone to be a certain way. Let me use something really simple. Let's just say I had a craving for everyone to sit on the floor and to sit a certain way. And now someone sits in a chair, or they maybe lay down, which you should stay laying down because I appreciate that everyone's comfortable, right? And if I had a craving for everyone to sit a certain way, I would be frustrated when someone lays down or when someone sits in a chair. But when I understand impermanence, that some people are going to lean up against the wall, some people are going to lay down, some people are going to hold their knee and sit back like this, some people are going to sit cross-legged, some people are going to sit like that, some people are going to sit in a chair. Hey, you guys can sit however you like. There's no rule, there's no commandment, there's no requirement in my mind for you to do it any particular way, so I can stay peaceful all the time. Whereas if I wanted everybody to do it a certain way, I'd be frustrated when I experience this impermanence. Do you see that? So it's the same.
I need to go to the next chapter, and
yeah, there's more here.
I'm far from have reached like the bottom of enlightenment.
Yeah. I'm explaining the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. Excuse me, I have some kind of hair or bug or something in my nose. I'm explaining the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. But I'm not giving you the tangible solutions yet. That's what's in here through all of these. Right? And that's what you would need to learn from this point forward. This is just an introduction class. We did do the breathing mindfulness meditation, which is part of that solution, but it's not the entire solution. There's a lot more than just meditation that you would need. So you're not getting all the tools that you need yet.
I need to say that for next week.
Good. So come next week. Or if you're like to go home today, it's online because I've taught it many times. We have YouTube videos and podcasts and books and all this kind of stuff. You can start digging into it now if you like. But yeah, that's where the real improvement comes. The Four Noble Truths is essentially helping you intellectually to understand the problem, the cause, the elimination, the path forward. But then in terms of the solutions, that's where all these others are coming in. He's going to teach you how to actually do it. Where now he just explains to you what you need to do and why this is all occurring. Because if you don't know what's causing these feelings, how could you ever eliminate them? Right? So that's what he's explaining to you to get you started. Yeah, you're welcome. No other questions? Okay, so what I'm going to do is end today with something that I've already shared. In terms of an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, what the teachings of the Buddha are there to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to know what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not anything external. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state with a lack of wisdom, we will go around the world and try to fix everything externally. We want our kids to do this. We want our brothers and sisters to do this. We want our parents to do this. We want our boss to do it this way. You'll never get to peacefulness that way, because there's 8 billion people in the world and you can't train them all to do things your way. But when you focus on the real problem, which is inside your own mind, and you start applying the solutions that the Buddha taught, you'll get to a real solution. And it's a permanent solution, because once you get to that enlightened mental state, your mind will never experience any of those discontent feelings ever again. Oh, Hugo, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. I see you have a mic. I didn't see it at first. Sorry about that. But by the time you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. You won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there's probably people that you like, and there's certain people that you dislike. This is coming from your own expectations. If someone meets your expectations, you like them. But if they don't meet what your expectations are, you dislike them, right? And you might think that dislike is coming from them, when in reality it's coming from your own mind, because you're expecting and wanting them to be a certain way. But you can clean all this up and you can purify the mind, and that's what's healing you. Is purification of your mind is going to heal you, so that now you can heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt again. So I'm going to go ahead and end class here, Hugo, but we can talk after class.
Okay.
Let's talk after class. I'm just going to end here by thanking all of you guys for coming in. Thank you for learning. Thank you for being interested to learn. Thank you for anyone online as well who's learning. If you guys would like to learn more, you can. There's additional classes and courses and retreats. I suggest you start with the first book that you can download for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. That's the best place to start. And even the course next week, if you guys are going to be around and you'd like to study in the course next week, that's an excellent place to start. And then as you have questions, you can come talk to me. You can ask questions in classes. You can post in our Facebook group. You can send me private messages. There's plenty of help here for you. I've removed all the barriers and all the obstacles by making it all free, making it available for you. So as long as you put in your time and effort and dedication and energy, you'll be able to gradually make your way to this enlightened mental state. So thank you for all of you guys. Thank you for everyone online, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question now?
Yes.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.